Hello and welcome to the HellfireCast, the official HellfireCom's podcast, blah blah blah, self-deprecating joke here.
Yeah, good. Thanks for the assembly, I guess.
Now, in the last HellfireCast, we took a sort of in-depth look on just how to basically, set up a playthrough, get it up and running, and just opinions that you could use to effectively get it off the ground and keep it running. Today, we're going to give our opinions on how not to do a playthrough.
Yeah, you could tell his excitement. It's building up. He's getting ready.
It is palpable, and I am indeed frothing with variable opinions.
They can't call me out on this. I'm doing it behind a podcast. I have the ultimate defense.
Okay, well, we may as well make this like a mirror image to the last one, and we'll start with reasonings. When I first started out doing playthroughs, I did them because someone I followed on YouTube did playthroughs. I won't mention his name here, but he knows who he is, and a lot of you probably do as well. And I thought, wow, this looks like fun. I'm going to give this a shot.
And look what happened.
The horrible future.
What did you do? You could have prevented this.
But yeah, I thought, this looks fun. I'll give it a shot. Never did I, think for a second that I would eventually, be doing it to pay the bills. And even at this point, it only just scrapes by, so, be careful what you wish for, really. But, my heart was in the right place. I did playthroughs because I liked them. I liked the format. I wanted to do them myself. But there are certain people who will have started doing playthroughs, and then the moment will come where these people will become partners with YouTube, and their quality and indeed general demeanour and just reason for doing things will go downhill drastically.
Now let me cut in here. Just because somebody's a partner of YouTube does not instantly mean they suck. It's not like a lever you flip down. Start sucking now. That doesn't necessarily mean if somebody becomes a YouTube partner, they instantly suck. Nakatulili is a YouTube partner, I believe, and he's getting some kind of ad thing from somewhere, and his shit is still great. I watch him all the time, but you'll notice that sometimes, this is unfortunately true, when certain people start doing this for a living, when they start focusing a lot on the ad stuff, it kind of tends to go downhill in order to realize that end. That's unfortunately sometimes true in my experience.
I firmly believe there are two types of people when it comes to creating content, and this is, when they're getting some kind of monetary kickback from it. One of them will feel perpetual guilt for simply getting money at all, and will strive to keep their content, high quality. The other will look at the fact that they're getting money, and they'll do things easy, because they know their fan base has a certain rabid tendency to it, and will just eat up any shit they put out.
I will add in here first, when you mentioned the first thing about people feeling guilty about earning money for doing this kind of thing, I want to point out, this is my belief, it's not bad to earn money for doing something you love. That's a great thing, and a lot of people strive for that. And I think the fact when people feel guilty about earning money for something they like to do, it's kind of a paradigm that's been established by, our particular upbringing. Like, especially here in America, and probably, still in the UK, it's still very similar. We have this ethic where we have to believe that working for money shouldn't be enjoyable. We shouldn't like it. We shouldn't have any kind of interest in it. So when that kind of situation happens and we feel guilty as a result of it, it's not necessarily a good thing, but there's reason why that comes up. And if that occurs for you ever in the future, I do want you to take a look at why you may be feeling that way and try to remind yourself that it's not necessarily bad to do stuff you like for money. It's, again, when you're focusing a lot on, like Tom mentioned, doing it the easy way, doing it just to get the money and not even care about things like quality and things like that. That's when the problem comes up.
My guilt mostly stems from the fact that, yes, I am doing what I love, and other people, just can't sometimes, earn it as easily as I can. That's what makes me feel guilty. That's what keeps me in line. So I don't want, to look back on, the past few years since I became a partner and say, yeah, things went downhill. And I'll agree with some people that some of the stuff we've put out isn't, as funny, per se, because that's what everyone judges playthroughs by these days, as stuff that came out, way back when. But I can at least say our quality has improved, video standards, audio standards, and so on.
That's definitely true. You do want to keep that in mind. Like I said before, all the way in the other podcast, that's really the truly important thing to consider, I think, at the end of the day. And again, whether you like it, whether you're willing to do it in spite of not getting any kind of money. But as you've said, when it becomes a focus on getting, the ad money and things like that, and the tactics they use, that's really what bugs me a lot. When they use particular tactics to try and encourage you to keep the ads running and to like and favorite, subscribe and things like that. That's when things get really annoying.
Okay, we've covered reasoning, and again, like in the last part, let's move on to equipment now. And I'll paraphrase this whole thing by saying, don't use a webcam!
When you see a lot of people make fun of the bad playthroughs, a lot of people tend to point the webcam at their TV or whatever. Now, sometimes you have to. If you're recording shit like 3DS stuff, stuff without a capture card, that's kind of hard to get to. And if the camera is positioned right and it's clear, I don't particularly mind that, in all honesty. But it's very easy to screw that up. And that's where you get a lot of the quintessential example of a bad playthrough. When the camera's fuzzy and angled weird and you can't really see anything on the TV. The capture card is usually preferred in that context, or some other better kind of screen capturing software. I'm saying, don't use a webcam, but if you can get it to work right, and if you get it to be otherwise good quality, I'd honestly take that risk. Because, again, if you can make it work out well, and it doesn't really feel intrusive, that's the main problem. When using a webcam, a lot of times it feels intrusive. When it doesn't feel that way, when they barely notice it's there, I think you're actually pretty safe.
Here's my reasoning for why a webcam just does not work. Number one, the quality will never be as good as stuff recorded with a capture card.
I do agree with that. The stuff that's directly taken will always be of better quality.
And you should always strive to get the best quality you can get. It doesn't really matter if you can't afford it. If you can't afford a HD capture card, a regular one will do until you reach the point where you can afford to upgrade. But if you're at the point where you can't even afford a regular capture card, maybe you should sit down and have a think whether or not doing playthroughs or let's plays or whatever type of, game-related medium is for you.
Or, you don't necessarily have to do stuff that requires a capture card. You can do stuff, there's emulation, technically, that's there, with screen capture software, PC games, things like that. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't do playthroughs. But again, like Tom brings up, just using a basic camcorder, things like that, it can become very low quality very fast. So you really do have to take that into account.
And again, it's not just the issue of low quality in a webcam. There's other variables as well. With a capture card, you don't have to worry about external forces working against you. If you don't set the lighting correctly, the sun may pass and you'll get a glare on your television, and if it's a particularly bright game, that'll look terrible. You've got the issue of someone, especially if you're recording it in a living room per se, someone could just walk past the camera, and how are you going to explain that to your viewers? Oh, just wait a minute, my mother's in the way doing the vacuuming. And it's just preferred, and I'm being very biased here, this is just my honest opinion, you should get a capture card before you even consider doing console recording and whatnot.
Yeah, try to avoid it where possible, but in all situations, it's not immediately horrible. Size it up, but the rule of thumb is to see if you can do it without having to rely on a camcorder first.
And this whole issue of quality extends to the audio side of things as well. Again, I admitted last time, audio editing and just recording is not my strong point, but again, at least I try and put effort into it. If you get to the point where the gain on your microphone is far too high, to the point where you can barely hear what someone's saying because it's so loud and scratchy, again, you've got to take a step back and consider if you're doing something wrong there.
Yeah, play with audio volume levels. Play with how far back the microphone is. I kind of run a guerrilla operating system right here in terms of my audio recording software, and I mean like guerrilla, like not like the hairy monkeys, but I whatever I do have here, I try to balance it out the best I can. I mean, I'm using headphones right now, so Tom's audio doesn't leak into what I'm recording here. I have the microphone back, things like that. I have the volume down to a certain level. It's best to experiment with what you have, and having not top of the line equipment won't doom you, but at the same time, you should sit down and try to make it the best you can with what you've got. And that will be fine, in my opinion.
Again, like in the last video, we've covered reasoning, we've covered equipment. Now we're going to discuss the use of and implementation of different types of commentary. And one of the biggest issues that certain people have when it comes to commentary is not being appropriate to the genre. Like, for example, trying to crack jokes and make yucks during either serious situations or strict horror games, thus ruining the ambience and so on.
That's not necessarily bad in some contexts. Again, it really does depend on the kind of playthrough you want to do. I don't necessarily find it a problem when somebody's playing a horror game, especially a bad horror game, and they just feel, like it's okay to make jokes over certain parts, especially the badly done ones and things like that. It really does depend on the kind of person that's doing the playthrough, and that's not bad. But if you really want to give a game some sort of presence, especially during the really serious scenes and things like that, sometimes it's good to just take a moment, pause, let them get that out of the way, and things like that. And that kind of leads to another point I wanted to bring up in terms of making jokes altogether. A lot of the times, especially when you're trying to do live commentary, there's this pressure that you can feel to say something, anything, to keep the jokes going. Anything you can blurt out at all. And a lot of times what happens is that tends to manifest in terms of saying shit you hear on the internet, or making something really offensive, like a rape joke or a sex joke. Well, okay, sex jokes aren't offensive. I guess it really depends on the gender, doesn't it? Just saying whatever comes to mind to try and keep things going and try to keep the laughs going up. And I admit, I've struggled with this too. It's hard to know when to pause and when to shut up, basically, during something. But that's why I recommended starting off with things like post-commentary, because it lets you practice that skill. It lets you realize the times when you should be pausing, when you should just let the game go on, and when you should give your mind a chance to work out something to say. Because unless you're really good at it, when you're constantly trying to appeal to your mind for some kind of joke, anything to come up, it's usually out of an act of desperation. And again, I felt that too. And a lot of times what comes out as a result is just a really poor kind of shock joke or whatever comes to mind to try and get something going. So I would recommend practicing being able to just let things slide for a while and not actually say anything, and give your mind a chance to come up with something rather than constantly being pressured to make one-liners and things like that. Because I find often when you do that, and I've practiced this for a while myself, when you do that, you have a better chance to come up with a lot more memorable and better material.
And again, it's the logical fallacy of, there's no commentary here, therefore it must either be an awkward pause or they just don't have anything to say.
Yeah, there's that fear that comes up. A lot of that is driven by fear, in my experience.
Those who actually say stuff like that don't really understand, I'm going to be a bit of a snob here, they don't really understand.
Here we go.
They don't really understand how the commentary process works. People don't naturally, ramble on and on and on unless they're nervous. Or Helldragon. So you've got to don't be afraid of there being pauses in your commentary. If it's again, a nice relaxing game, it could actually work to the benefit of the overall product.
That's definitely true. Again, like I said, it does depend on the kind of playthrough you want to do at the end of the day, but a lot of it does derive itself from fear. A fear of, if this track's going to be good enough, if the viewer is going to appreciate this kind of pause and things like that. My advice to you for that kind of fear is to basically just experiment starting off, with the pauses and things like that. And you'll find that a lot of the times, people don't really mind that. Maybe if there are huge gaps, they'll wonder, did the audio cut out or things like that if you're doing commentary? And that happens. That's fine. But for the most part, if you give yourself the chance to not, say anything, and come up with better stuff more organically, then your viewers are more likely to appreciate that, I've found.
Now, we've discussed the do-nots of comedy. Now, this is going to be about the informative side of commentary. And obviously, the most basic thing here is fact check. Make sure you know your shit before you go into, the recording process. And if you get things wrong, for the love of God, don't get defensive about it when you get called out on it.
Definitely agree. I've seen that actually happen quite recently with some other people I follow. Just try to record, cut that, take out if the video's not uploaded. If it is, you don't have to redo the whole thing. I'm not going to fault you if you don't do that. Put up an annotation, things like that. Just point out where you're wrong and, accept it. It's not anything you need to get into a fight over.
Pretty much. For example, and actually there are ways to get around this. Take Sonic Generations, for example, our playthrough. In Sky Sanctuary, the first 2 minutes, where I, rarely talk for, 2 minutes straight, was actually a retake done in post. And basically, it was because FTA went on about how, Generations did not use the Hedgehog engine. And then on reflection, we went back and did some proper research, not just like on the surface stuff like, oh, hey, it's not in Generations. We actually, looked in depth at various sources. And we found out it did, just on, on a lesser level with less effects and so on. So I went and recorded this little spiel about how it uses it, but not to the same degree as Unleashed, and just spliced it in, and boom, there you go, that fixed the problem.
Now, one thing I do enjoy about informative playthroughs is when they bring up trivia that usually a lot of informative playthroughs don't really cover. And I'm not saying, it can be hard to find, the really tangible bits of trivia, stuff people have never heard of before. I'm saying that when you do an informative kind of playthrough, it's not necessarily bad to go over the same information that a lot of other people have gone through. People who might be checking out your videos may never have seen any other video where they talk about stuff like this, so it's always good to have that as a backup, basically, just in case you don't know. This is how this happens, this is why this happens, here's some trivia I found out about it. But, going beyond that and having some interesting bits besides the general, this is how you play the game, this is the story, these are some other basic facts about it, things like that, that really does help an informative playthrough and make it all the more entertaining, I've found.
So yeah, if you're going to go for an informative playthrough, just make sure your facts are straight, otherwise not only will you lose credibility, but the overall product will suffer.
Yeah, that's definitely important to make sure you've got everything together like that.
We've discussed comedic stuff, we've discussed informative, now for the overall feel of commentary. There's a lot of stuff going around, and I'm gonna, just specifically point out Game Grumps here, where they will discuss everything but the game. And when it gets to that point in time, where you could literally just take their audio and put it on a different playthrough videos of theirs, and it would match up perfectly. Because obviously, in an 06 video, they're not talking about 06, they're just talking about their day-to-day lives. Then you have a problem.
Now, it's not necessarily bad to be off-topic sometimes. I mean, sometimes for a game, especially when it retreads familiar parts, with Kingdom Hearts and all the kill the Heartless in this one room kind of shit they throw at you all the time to pad the game out, it's not necessarily bad to go off-topic sometimes to fill that kind of space, but you do want to have a sense of focus. You can't just, fuck around and talk about everything whatsoever. I feel it really does hurt the quality of the video. If you keep it mostly on task, talking about these particular things, maybe this stuff, maybe now during this filler fight would be a good idea to bring up this information about the game. It's not necessarily bad to not be completely 100% focused, but having that kind of targeting helps keep your commentary in line and more effective, I've found.
Yeah, the game may be a tool for you to present your views, but it's for views on the game. If you're just going to rattle off, stuff about what you did that day, the bands you like, the movies you like, do what we do. Start a podcast. Because these people spent time creating a game, and you're just going to sit there and rattle off any old shit. Honestly, I find that not only disrespectful, but I find it extremely lazy.
Yeah, I mean, 06 is bad. Make no mistake there. But again, most of the people that talk about 06 talk about how bad the game is. And it's been said to death, yes, this is true. But at the same time, it still has that kind of focus. Just any old shit doesn't really help.
And I'm just going to use this as a platform to discuss Game Grumps in general before we move on to the next thing. Just,
There we go. I'm just going to lean on back and just let him get through this.
Just to get it out of my system. And this is just relating on how not to do a playthrough. And yeah, I may come off as a bit of a bitter, jealous sod here, but you know what? Fuck it. When Game Grumps started, It was, as they described it, a Let's Play channel where two guys got together and played games. And you could tell they were having a fun time. They were really getting into the games, and that's where stuff like Goof Troop, Link to the Past, and so on shone, because it was an active look into their views of the games. Flash forward to today, when they started just, taking requests from people, and you could just mix and match their commentary, and it wouldn't seem out of place at all with any game you placed on. And honestly, I think this is where they started to go downhill. And tragically, this downhill process started much quicker than I think anyone could have predicted. Because, and this is, going back to how to do a playthrough, you should do games that you're not only comfortable with, but you are familiar with, because then you have like an intimate knowledge of what makes it tick, and what does not work in a game. When you just pick a game off a pile and say, oh, we have to play this because we promised we would, that's when you lose focus, and that's where your commentary starts to lose focus.
I tremendously agree. When you have to make it an obligation, you build up resistance, and it just stops being fun. The reason, and this even applies to playing like bad games, one of the reasons I enjoy talking about stuff like Kingdom Hearts and things like that, because there are a lot of bad parts about it, and I legitimately enjoy making fun of that stuff. It's great for me. I love doing that, and that's why I keep doing it. If it was just like a bad game that I really had no investment in whatsoever, I don't want to do it. It has to be a fun thing to do. And yeah, sometimes you'll have those times where you don't feel like doing a particular thing, when resistance builds up and things like that. But when it's in there at the beginning, when it's about something you don't really care about to begin with and you don't really want to go through with anyway, the whole quality of the product just suffers as a result. It's basically a good rule of thumb. Just play games you like to play for whatever reason. Even if it's terrible and you just want to bash the shit out of it, that's fine. That's a perfectly valid reason. And by doing that, your enjoyment can be more sustained, and there's a better chance that the quality of your commentary is going to be a lot better anyway.
A lot of people will make the reasoning that we don't care about the game at all. We just want to hear these two people talk. You know what? I don't really give a shit. This is a platform for doing a game playthrough. And when you do shit like that, it makes people like me look bad, it makes Helldragon look bad, it makes the people on Something Awful, etc. look bad, because they're putting effort into their work, and these people turn up their noses because they just want to hear these two people talk about their day.
When people put out bad videos like this, it kind of goes back to my whole point about acknowledging criticism. There's a lot of people that tend to go, like, if you say something bad about a particular video, you don't like it for a particular reason, and then another guy goes, oh, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. That is the shittiest feedback. That is the shittiest argument in response to any criticism, and I will personally hate you for it. And this is where I'm going to get a little bit mad, because the refusal to understand that other people may have different opinions than you, may like different things than you, and in fact may have good points, the refusal to take that all in pisses me the fuck off, in all honesty. You see that kind of shit not only in playthroughs, you see it in reviews, you see it in other forms of creative media, you see it in professional media. The fucking Mass Effect 3 ending, the feedback with Devil May Cry. If you can't take criticism, and if you can't acknowledge that other people may have valid points, get the fuck out. I don't want you in my damn YouTube internet club here, alright? Or whatever the fuck you're doing. If you can't have that ability to take that into consideration as a creative, if you can't understand that other people may have things they want to bring up that you should take advantage of to make your work better, get the fuck out. I don't want you here because you're fucking poison to the rest of us who are actually trying.
I agree 100% there, and I just want to, frame this whole thing by saying I don't think Game Grumps is an inherently bad idea. I love JonTron, I love Ego, they're both smart and funny guys, but you know what? They're fucking lazy, and they deserve every bit of criticism that they're getting right now. Oh yes, they do. And the people who go in the comment section and defend them by saying we don't care, we just want this. The internet is not your fucking hug box.
When you surround yourself, and this again goes back to criticism, I'm trying to tie this back into the point, believe it or not. When you surround yourself with people who entirely like your work, and you're not willing to let in people who may have a differing opinion, it suffers overall. Your quality of work suffers, and your ability to understand that sometimes shit just ain't gonna go your way. And that's a skill we all need to learn to deal with, and that's very important, I think. So having both of those kinds of feedback is supremely important, not just in creative work, but in life in general.
Now, I just want to take a moment to address the people who are making these comments and who are defending, Game Grumps. Because honestly, John and Aaron aren't entirely to blame with this. Sure, they make mistakes. Sure, they fuck up a lot. And they have fucked up a lot this year and most of last. But you know what? They're not entirely to blame. The people who are in those comment sections, I just want to say this to you. If you don't wise up, you will be the poison that kills Game Grumps. And I've seen it happen to multiple fan bases before.
That's definitely true. It's some of my favorite stuff. Sometimes they have fan bases that, I'm not going to name any names, but if you know me, you know who I'm talking about. Sometimes they have views that they have ways that they act that kind of mess things up for everyone. And I think we all kind of just need to calm the fuck down about this and just understand that not everyone's going to like the same stuff. Not everyone's going to feel the same way. And that's fine. That's perfectly all right. I mean, even with our shit, if there's some stuff you don't like about Hellfire Comics, if there's some stuff, if you don't even like us at all, you know what? Fine. That's just how it is, and I'm not going to blame you for that. That's just how you are, and I'm completely cool with it. That's life. I'm completely cool with that. And that's the thing you need to consider for any kind of creative medium. Not everyone's going to like it. That's cool. Just let it go, man.
And again, I've tried to make, not even arguments, just like detailed discussions on, some of the comment sections of Game Grumps videos and whatnot. And, haha, YouTube video comments and all that. But still, it's just the people who will not hear any negative criticism at all against their idols. And they do idol worship, John and Aaron, because they're not flawless. They do make a lot of mistakes. And I'll be honest here, when Egoraptor goes on, he makes Sequelitis, a series of very intricate and in-depth, videos about the do's and do-nots of game design, and then goes and makes those same mistakes himself. It makes me think twice about how smart he may actually be.
Yeah. You do have to take that into consideration, I've realized.
So to cap off this increasingly long section, make sure your commentary fits, just the genre and content you're trying to cover. Don't half-ass it, and don't pander. Don't put in memes for the sake of wanting people to go, hey, I understand that.
I got that reference. Yeah, don't be trying to appease Captain America. He doesn't know any better. He's from the 40s.
He doesn't even understand the likes and dislikes system.
He doesn't even get Pokemon and NASCAR. You've ever seen that comic page? Oh god, that pissed me off.
And if you are a Game Grumps fan who, obviously watches Hellfire Comms, don't take this to heart, because it's not mostly an attack against you, it's against them, and they know better. So just let them get on with their work, and if you see a comment that just says, I don't like this part because such and such, don't go, oh, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. You know what? Think to yourself, if you don't like it, don't read it.
There you go. Well, that's kind of solving the problem with another problem, but hopefully you got the point of what we were trying to say.
Now, we've discussed reasoning, we've discussed equipment, we've discussed what type of commentary to do. Unfortunately, I'm not done with Game Grumps yet.
Oh boy.
Because now we move on to editing. John and Aaron do not edit their videos. I don't blame them for this. I'm sure they have other projects to put off and, not do, such as, JonTron reviews and Sequelitis. But they have an editor, the third Grump, known as Barry, and, he oversees all the editing and whatnot. And this is kind of where I come to clash mostly with Game Grumps, because I can put up with bad commentary. I can't put up with sloppily made videos. And I say sloppily not in the sense that the video quality is bad, or that the audio is poorly mixed. It's in that they don't remove their mistakes. And this isn't just in terms of them dying over and over. There can be an entire part where there is no progress made whatsoever, and there is no reason for that to be on YouTube.
Yeah, I agree, definitely.
I'm sorry, but there's not. It's sloppy, it's lazy, it's inefficient, and it is a waste of bandwidth. You know what I do? If I make a mistake, I do a simple crossfade. Takes me all of 5 seconds, and boom, there you go. I've cut out maybe, 5-10 minutes. And the commentary can flow and things can move on. If you're not willing to do that, then it says a lot about you as an editor, as a commentator, just as a person who does playthroughs, really. And I'm not going to entirely blame Barry for this. He's someone who's just paid to get the job done. He may not specifically know the games he's covering, so, he doesn't know what to leave in and what to take out without, ruining the game as a whole. So I'll just go ahead and blame John and Aaron for this one, because they should know better. And it's not that they don't have means to get through these things efficiently at their side. They've constantly made reference to the fact that they have a computer near them, or they've looked up stuff. Sometimes they just don't care, sometimes they make obvious mistakes, and you know what? When I'm live streaming, I make a lot of the stupid mistakes myself, yeah. But you know what? That's live, and you know, when they record their commentary and their footage, they have a chance to go through it in post. And even when I do live streams and I make mistakes, I go back, I remove said mistakes. You know, look at Skyward Sword. I'm sure you'll see a lot of crossfades there. I made tons of mistakes because it was my first time going through the game.
It was a ton of mistakes because he played Skyward Sword, and that was pretty much a big mistake from the get-go. I didn't just edit out the whole game.
And if you know what, I can edit out co-commentators as well, Helldragon. But it's about respecting your audience, and it's about not pandering. Stop thinking your audience just wants to watch you run about in circles, because you know what, the hardcore ones, the little kiddies who will suck up any shit you put out will, but you know, the older ones, the ones who don't have that type of patience won't. And yes, you may get a sudden bump of subscribers, but it's not going to sustain you over the long term if you don't care about the quality of your videos.
Now, and I mostly agree with you, you know, in the very rare cases that maybe there's a part where you get nowhere, but the commentary is really good, or maybe something interesting pops up to make it worth it. Again, use your best judgment. For the most part, I do agree that you have to cut out what isn't really necessary. You want to trim the fat as much as possible when you're making these kind of videos to keep the momentum going and the commentary going and things like that. Use your best judgment, but for the most part, try to keep things as lean as possible.
It's about efficiency, it's about respecting your audience. If you don't care about these things, maybe you shouldn't be doing playthroughs at all. I'm sorry. That's just one of the cornerstones of basic video creation, in my opinion. And don't think I hate Game Grumps because I'm, you know, criticising them as much as I am. I criticise because I love, and it is so sad to see them in this slump right now. Occasionally there will be bright sparks, you know, brilliance that shone in the beginning. And it's not just a case of, you know, rose-tinted glasses or, God forbid, nostalgia goggles at this point. They were generally, you know, fresh, you know, entertaining to begin with, and again, it's not to say that they're utterly shit nowadays. There are some, you know, really entertaining moments. But can you honestly say, for the most part, that Game Grumps does something better than anyone else? Apart from them being two internet personalities, not really at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of where they got a lot of their momentum. And I mean, I like JonTron and Ego Raptor too. But that whole kind of, those fan bases merging together, I think that's helped kind of cultivate this whole environment that's come up with their videos and all the criticism about it and things like that.
And it's not just Game Grumps. It's not. It's people like PewDiePie. It's people like iJustine. It's these people who want to pander to certain ideals, who want to create easy content, just get it out there, make some money. They may not be doing it explicitly or even intentionally, but that's just the image they give off. And if you're going to make a playthrough, don't just do it for the money. Do it because you love, well, just games, really, and you want to show people why you love it. Create an efficient product, make sure it's edited correctly, make sure the audio is balanced, make sure the video quality is nice, make sure you have something either interesting or at least funny to say. Look at Retrograde if you want to see how not to do a playthrough. Yes, they can be assholes sometimes, but you know what? Look at Helldragon. Even assholes can have points sometimes.
Fuck you to the 10th dimension. That just came out of nowhere. I'm sitting here minding my own business and suddenly stealth insult. What the fuck?
And on that note, we will end this rather ranty HellfireCast. And I hope you take away from this more than just Game Grumps, blah blah blah, fuck 'em. So, thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Bye bye.
See you later.